G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. As you can see on the screen, I'm not playing jets, I'm not even playing props, and I'm certainly not playing tanks. Yes, this is correct. I am indeed playing War Thunder's naval combat. Yes, I really am. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm enjoying it. I'm unironically enjoying Navy. Maybe that's because I am having trouble with jets, because obviously the new jets are quite a challenge to learn, and at the same time there are some issues plaguing jets in general. It's probably not that, to be honest. I certainly was looking for something kind of fresh to try out again, and I thought maybe I could go back to my Kern, and lo and behold, this is indeed the KMS Kern. I believe it's KMS, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm not really a ship guy, and I've never really been terribly interested in naval combat in general. The first time I even came across World War II naval combat was in a book that we had to read as part of like an 8th grade project, which was about the sinking of the Bismarck, and that book was actually fantastic. I can't even remember what it was called. It was like the Deadly Hunt or something like that. Fantastic book, and it absolutely it was thrilling. It was gripping the whole way through. I enjoyed the hell out of it. But that's the only real time that I've had a keen interest in naval combat. Perhaps maybe hearing the stories about the HMAS Sydney and the HMAS Sydney 2 fighting I can't remember. I think the Sydney 1 fought the Emden, not the Emden that we have in game, but the World War One. I can't really remember. It was some sort of cargo raider, and the Cormoran against the HMAS Sydney 2, I believe. I may have gotten it mixed up, but regardless, we're not in either of them, and it's kind of sad that we don't have the HMAS Sydney, and we don't even have an Australian ship, which is disappointing to say the least. But that's okay, because we're in the Kern, and the Kern is actually a fun ship to play. No, I'm not kidding you. Gaijin has not paid me a single cent to say this. I enjoy the Kern, especially on this map. This is probably the best map in the entire game. Yes, I would say it is better than Korea. I would say it is better than Poland and Eastern Europe and Normandy. It is certainly better than Fulda, and it will always be better than American Desert. Yes, I'm not even kidding. This is probably the best naval map that has been introduced, period. Why? Because it's well balanced. There are hiding spots for everyone. There's plenty of tactics to be involved. There's a lot of good stuff on the map. The only issue is, as you can see by looking at the map, you both spawn in the open water. If literally one island was placed, or two islands, because of two spawns, in front of each spawn, then you would have a really, really solid map. This would probably be one of the best maps that Gaijin has ever produced, because it works perfectly with naval combat. There are tall islands with cliffs. There is plenty of spaces for torpedo boats to hide, plenty of spaces for destroyers to sneak in and out of, and to get to the cap in the center, and even the caps on the outside. As a cruiser, you need to take several risks. This is actually one of the newer maps, and honestly, it gives me a bit of hope for naval. Everyone used to rat on it, obviously, and when Mike Goes Boom did his famous video on naval with absolutely condemning the hell out of it, and it was pretty lackluster and it was pretty lame, to say the least. Now, with larger ships, as it stands, this looks really solid, especially for only being in the game for a year. Remember that when tanks were introduced, it was awful. It was genuinely horrible. There were things that you look back on and you think, wow, that was pathetic. And I genuinely mean that. If you go back and look at some old videos from 2014, 2015, even Thunder League, which is the former War Thunder's professional esports league, you can see the gameplay was garbage. The shells did no damage. Penetrations were even more ridiculous and less frequent than they are now. Armor was ridiculous, to say the least. And shells, when they penetrated, they did 0 damage, unless of course you were firing a derp gun. That was really bad. Now, it's much better. It's cleaner. There's a lot more that's good about naval. And there's a lot more to look forward to every time you play ground forces. And the same is happening with naval forces. I can just see it improving. But I think, I have a hunch that it is improving at a slightly faster rate. And that is a really good thing. I can see a sort of tactic developing. And each map, whilst being, not the greatest, because Gaijin, it really is not great at designing maps. Let's face it. But in the case of naval combat, you can see that there is a marked improvement over previous iterations of naval combat. The maps are getting better, the ships are getting more enjoyable, and whilst bigger still literally means better, so for example, the Kern is going to absolutely ruffle stomp destroyers, it still leaves an interesting dynamic between similar ships. So, for example, the Yudachi, which I've been playing a lot of, eats Clemsons for breakfast, but at the same time, if you come out in a cowl, you really don't want to face the Yudachi. You don't want to be in a Yudachi when you face a cowl. It is quite a scary ordeal. But you're not completely dead if you come across a cowl, or if you come across any random ship, in fact. You have torpedoes, and the Japanese destroyers have excellent torpedoes, and they can reload them. They have like an extra torpedo bay, which is really, really cool. Sure, torpedoes are slow, but these ones, 20 kilometer range, 91 kilometers per hour, at a 1 meter depth stroke. These things are monsters, and if you can take a cap early and use your speed, and then back off a little bit, and fire your torpedoes into an area to deny an entry, you can actually get yourself some kills. And then what you do is you sneak off into the distance, and you use your guns maybe at range, maybe you sneak around an island. And in this case, you have plenty of options to do that. Plenty of options to flank in a destroyer, plenty of options to use torpedoes around corners, and it's getting better. It's actually getting better. And I'm starting to have a lot more hope for Navy. It's incredible. It's genuinely incredible. And I don't know why the sudden improvement. But from when I played the British ships, and even some of the earlier German ships, I wasn't really having that great a time. Sure, the little torpedo boats are fun and dinky and whatnot. And they sort of wear off after a while. The novelty wears off and it just becomes a little bit boring. The destroyers and the cruisers have been incredible, to say the least. It's been really good, solid fun. And I mean that sincerely. It's actually getting better, because the map design is starting to improve. The maps are starting to be designed specifically with cruisers and destroyers in mind, as well as motor torpedo boats. The AI being added to fill the match queue means that, sure, I can farm a little bit, but at the same time, it populates the matches. It's nice. It's actually nice to have the AI, and it's something that, sometimes I wouldn't mind happening in low-tier matches, or some other kind of match, where we have, I guess, AI. Maybe we could have, a kind of PvE game mode, but it was just made of shojis. And, we were outnumbered 4-1 or 5-1 in tanks. And I don't know, something like that would be cool. I don't mind the AI. People laughed at the AI, in fact, when they got introduced. And honestly, I don't really care. I genuinely do not care. It's fun. And it's just nice to have a couple of extra things to shoot at that aren't really going to challenge you so much. But at the same time, there's every chance that it could be a player, and you still need to stay alert. You still need to maintain distances. You still need to position yourself correctly in every single situation. It's kind of like a Russian roulette, and you know what? I like it. I genuinely enjoy it. Torpedoes are fun. You jettison them all at the beginning of the match, or wherever you feel is best, and you maybe get a couple of kills, but I think mostly these are for aerial denial and to stop larger ships at closer range. Kind of like if you get a brown alert moment where you sort of come around an island and you see 3 destroyers and a cruiser in your Yudachi, it is a massive brown alert moment. So what you do is you just fire off your torpedoes, try and get as much damage in as possible, and hopefully you can sink 1 or 2, or at least cripple them enough to allow your teammates to deal with them more effectively. Honestly, I see a lot more hope for naval since playing in the last few days. I genuinely enjoyed playing naval. Aside from a couple of things like getting shot off spawn by a bot destroyer in my Kern, there are some things obviously that need to be addressed. The spawns, you should not be spawning in the open. I think that's a given. I think the tightening of spotting would be interesting. I think perhaps having a reticule of some sort to adjust for fire rate. I think the automatic targeting is a little bit... I don't think it's that great, but I think there could be some, little improvements to make that better. I do like the general feel of naval, though. It does feel nice, and it is a lot better than what it was in the past. I would like to see also a couple of mechanics added, because it does feel a little bit plain. Tanks RB has the scout mechanic. Air RB at the moment has, it's got your ground targets, secondary ordnance. You also have air-to-air missiles, afterburners, radar. It doesn't feel as fleshed out with Navy. And of course, this will probably come in time, but things I would like to see are like spotting aircraft, where perhaps they can give you that automated targeting and instant range finding. Perhaps they can spot torpedoes quicker so that you don't get surprised by some area denial torpedoes. Perhaps some air-to-air, or rather, air superiority will become more important because of that. And I do see things like the AA on destroyers and cruisers being insane. And you can see that I don't even have to bat an eyelid to get air kills, which is, I think, a little bit ridiculous. I think perhaps if you get within, 600 or 1,000 meters, the larger guns should open up and they should be deadly. But I certainly don't think that if you get caught out and you're not spotting planes properly, and someone gets within 1 kilometer and drops, or 2 kilometers and drops a torpedo, I think you should pay the consequences for it, because you should try and be as vigilant as possible. All in all, though, the map, like this map design, you look at it and there are so many places a motor torpedo boat could hide, so many places a destroyer could hide, and of course you have smoke screens, you have extra mechanics to, deal with threats. Smoke screens and torpedoes. You have multiple spawns, which is always nice, because if you get ammo rack straight off the bat, you can always get ammo rack straight off the bat again in another ship, which is always lovely. But jokes aside, it's relaxing. Everything happens at a slow pace. You take everything nice and slow, and it's fun. I've actually never had this much fun in naval before. And it's probably because the larger boats, or the larger vessels rather, are just a lot nicer. It's fun walking around, floating around in a giant behemoth of a ship and absolutely nuking the shit out of everything that you come across, perhaps trying a few torpedoes to deny area. But as you can see here, I've switched to my timed fuse HE, and I'll pretty soon get a kill. You can see easy crit, and soon I'll get a kill. And that year 2 is all the way up at 4,000 or 3,000 meters, something ridiculous like that. I don't think it should be like that. But at the same time, it's technically an open beta. So I'll give it a pass. But, you know what I mean. I'd really like to see it addressed, but at the same time, what like there's not a big space for planes in naval at the moment, and sometimes I think that's a good thing actually, because if you think about it, the reason why tanks and planes are a thing, well, the reason why planes are a thing in tank combat rather, is because you have campers. Also, you need food for the AA, but in tanks, you can't just sort of root out campers as easily. It's not as easy to get a flank on someone holding down a position. And in naval, you can't really hold down a position as such. Sure, you can do an external flank and, maybe catch people off in their spawn. And I guess that's what naval might be, the air superiority might be for. But at the same time, if you come out in numbers against this guy, you're in open water. So there's not a whole lot that he can do. And the real threat comes from the smaller boats if you get into close quarter combat. Comes from the little motor torpedo boats that sneak around an island and dump 3 torpedoes into your hull. It's honestly both interesting, relaxing, and challenging at the same time. And it's something that I found is kind of lacking in War Thunder. Something that is genuinely relaxing. I personally don't find any enjoyment in bomber gameplay, and so I think I've turned to naval just for something to chill out with. If you're looking for something, I know I checked the market today and I saw that the Yudachi is 28 Gaijin coins. So if you're looking for something that you don't really want to spend that many, you don't want to drop too much GE, or you don't want to drop too many of your precious shekels, then sure, Yudachi might be a good pick. You could also go for some of the smaller premium boats if you want to skip the motor torpedo boats. There are always the sub chasers at 3.3, which have a similar feel, and you can pretty quickly work your way up to at least the 3.7 destroyers. And with the Germans, you have the K2. I don't want to try and pronounce that word, cannon boat. I don't want to try that because I know I'm going to butcher it, but you know what I mean. You know the vehicle that I'm talking about. It's interesting and it's good fun. There's something charming about naval, honestly, and it's got me interested in naval as a general theme. It's cool, and I genuinely like it. It's something that has never happened in a long, long time. If you're still hesitant about naval, or if you're still skeptical, I think you have every right to be, because it's still not finished and there are still things that are wrong with it. But I think there's a lot less to be skeptical about now than there was a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It's become somewhat of a very relaxing game mode, and I think in realistic battles at least, that's a really good thing. I tried out Naval EC for a brief half an hour, and I genuinely had fun. It was arcade, so I got reloading torpedoes and all, but at the same time, there were plenty of little challenges and a couple of extra little things. I got a few torpedo kills, I protected our convoy, and then I started to engage some enemy ships. Another thing you'll tend to notice is the games go on forever. This is a 20-minute long game, or more than 20 minutes, because my recording only caught the first, or it clipped out the first 2 or 3 minutes. It clipped out me spawning in. And so you tend to play a lot of matches that tend to drag on for a little while. Obviously, I think the research points in Silver Lions gain should be increased accordingly. But on the flip side, you're not really playing it to gain Silver Lions and research. It's more just for the sheer relaxing factor. I don't know why. I just chill out in naval a lot. Sure, when I get killed by something bullshit, I get salty, but it doesn't last for it doesn't last long, and it's just, in general, really, really fun. Anyway, ladies and gents, that is the Kern. 6 kills, just casually romping around the map and going nuts. And I get some cool medals while doing it. I love it. I get to grind out my medals, which is another thing that's really cool about this game now. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.